Hello, good evening, and welcome to another one of our topics here. Today we've got smart installations. We're looking at what smart is and how smart works. You've got myself, Darren, and Jake joining you. Jake is just a little bit over there, but we're using two computers, two screens because of social distancing. So although we've got a bit of a bubble going, mate, haven't we?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time together, as always.
We thought it was only right that we do adhere to the social distancing requirements, and Jake sat just to the left of me, and we work you through this brilliant session we've got tonight, which is looking at smart installations and how they work and how they can help you, and more importantly, help add value to you and what your clients are asking for. So we've got lots to go through. We've got a little bit of a PowerPoint that can aid us as we go through as well. If you've got any questions, you can put them in the question part. Me and Jake can pick that up as we go along, or probably we'll leave them to the end, shall we, on this one?
We can do, yeah, if it's you know, right of us to answer at the time, we'll probably will do so, but if we'll try and keep them towards the end.
Yeah, we can check on those. So I mean, I think the first thing first is, Jake, is what is smart and smart all about. So if we look at what smart is going to be and talking about how we get to smart, smart can be quite a big thing, can't it?
There we go. Smart can be huge, Darren. It's pretty much anything you want it to be. It's sort of evolved from very basic stuff, which we'll come on to shortly, about the protocols and the way that things communicate with each other, but it's starting to evolve into this massive scale projects now we're seeing, and I've certainly done a lot of work within those large scale projects where it is literally anything you want it to be. If you want something to open or close or, you know, operate something else, smart can do that for you.
Now, when people think of smart, it looks as though people are probably suggesting that smart installations are something that is autonomous. So it's something that will react against something else happening and work for itself, an intelligence behind it. But I remember the first sort of smart systems were something that you could probably use off of Bluetooth, and we'll come on to looking at communication protocol in a moment. But the advantages of smart, or so-called smart installations, are quite wide-reaching. We know that assisted living is a big thing of what we're looking at in our buildings and how we build our properties of the future. And assisted living can be something where as simple as just installing a few cameras so you can check in on some elderly relatives and the like. But it can also go to the other end of the spectrum where we can start to really control what's going on in that environment. So rather than waiting for someone to turn the heating on for themselves, you can take control of that and take it out of their hands. You can have devices that would not only sense whether the temperature is getting too cold or too warm, it will then ask for heating to kick in or turn off. Likewise, it can undo windows and doors. And this is where we look at what can smart do. So just quickly, Jake, just what can smart do?
Well, as I say, it can do anything. So you've mentioned there you can do switching. That's the big one, really, is the switching. It can do temperature. It can do opening and closing. We've also got dimming as well. Like, we can look to do that as well. You've got cameras. You've got plug-in devices as well that operate on different protocols.
Yeah, now you keep mentioning protocols, and I've said it once today as well. We need to really look at them protocols and look at the communication networks that are around. But you're right there. Literally, it's pretty much endless, isn't it? We have devices, and these devices, it's the communication that's the smart bit, because the device is just a device, isn't it, Jake, really, and how it works?
Yeah, I mean, the bits that sit behind, you know, let's say, for example, switches and sockets, there's a module that sits behind there. The actual switches and sockets themselves typically aren't smart unless they have that inbuilt. It's modules that we add to it, or small devices, again, which if we add to it, make it that smart title.
Now we're going to just take a look and look at that protocol between one and the other, because early adopters of the technology or the systems will probably remember that it was probably the infinite, so the very entry level is probably Bluetooth is a communication protocol that we're all aware of. I think Nokia invented it, didn't they, Jake? Do you remember Nokia, Jake?
Yes, I do. I also remember infrared as well. I know that was slightly before the Bluetooth. It's not something that we typically see when we look at smart stuff. However, we probably are still using it in some situations, remotes, etc. However, I know all the smart tellies do now use the Bluetooth for their remotes.
Believe it or not, Jake, the very first VHS recorder that used to have a remote control used to come on a long lead. You may not remember that, Jake.
I definitely don't remember that one.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, that communication protocol is the one that that we're looking at here. Now, what we're suggesting is that this is the crux of the matter. You can have as many devices as you want. It's all around that communication protocol. So, as Jake suggested there, some of the early ones were RF, so radio frequency. This will give you the ability to put a receiver and a transmitter away from each other, no wires between at all, and they will transmit a signal from one to the other. Once that signal's been received, it will do something. It will dim, it will open, or it will close, it will turn off, it will turn open. So there's lots of things here, Jake, that we can add to it, isn't there? Now, that RF technology is restricted, isn't it?
It is, and it's limited due to several things, really. Whether there could be interruption or interference within that bandwidth of signal. You've got things like the material of the building. So if you've got anything to do with metal, glass, wood, plasterboard, all those types of things, they can actually have an impact on the RF signal itself.
Now, we know that RF can have interference from other RFs that are similar bandwidths. Now, typically what you find when you're looking at automation, which is where we are with the smart installations, a bandwidth of 868 megahertz, I believe, Jake.
Yep.
So that means my receiver is going to transmit that signal, and then I'm going to receive it, and nothing else should affect it. So now if I put something a long way away, and we're talking typically, the furthest you can go is what, 100 meters, Jake?
100 meters, but that has to be clear sight all the way through. So there can't be any interruptions. There can't be any of the materials that I've mentioned in the way it has to be as the crow flies.
So if all of a sudden I did put one of those walls in, a constructed wall of brick and breeze block, all of a sudden my signal is going to become weaker. So I can't have that distance I did before. I've got to then start to reduce the distance. The effectiveness of my signal has just been compromised. So that's one of the problems with RF, and the fact that, again, we're relying upon RF signal to go to one to the other. You don't want to be interfere with any other RF signals that are around. Now, this would require battery technology to be probably in the receiver or in the transmitter, would it not, Jake?
Yeah, I have seen some stuff where it is hardwired, so it's it's got the battery backup as well. But typically speaking, you're right. Yeah, it would be something like a fob or a switch plate that's you can't get wires to that part of the room or building. Then typically, yes, it would be battery operated. There's
a massive advantage for this, isn't there? Because we've seen rewires, haven't we, Jake, where people just can't get down a wall. There are some parts of the building that just cannot be disturbed. So what we found is that actually people will then start to use these RF switches, and that you can get access to the ceiling void, but you can't get access down any paneling or the like. So then people will start to all of a sudden use RF. It's a great solution to some of the problems that are out there, is it not?
It is, yeah. And I've actually used it myself. I've used the old Click Smart stuff before, which operated on that RF technology you're speaking about there, Darren. And I used it for my soffit lights. I didn't want to drop a conduit down the wall on the outside, so I used it for the soffit lights and had a wireless switch. So again, that sort of situation, it worked perfectly for what I needed it to do.
Yeah. Now the next one up. So we're moving away probably from some looking at the protocol there, which is we've gone from Bluetooth, we've gone to RF. The next protocol probably on the list for us to consider is looking at Wi-Fi. Now Wi-Fi, nearly everyone's got Wi-Fi, haven't they, Jake? Why aren't we all using Wi-Fi then?
Well, Wi-Fi 6, that's the latest standard that's just come out. It's been revamped, over the last few months. They haven't actually done anything to sort of boost the signals. It's more about the protocols that sit behind it and how it operates. So it's not, oh, there's a new Wi-Fi out, it must be stronger and greater. That's not necessarily the case. However, Wi-Fi does have its limitations. So you take a central hub, for example, that when it comes into your property, then it goes into the router. Out from that router, it then emits that signal. Every time it emits that signal onto one device and then onto the next device and keeps going on and so forth, it starts to break down that signal down. So the more devices in effect that you have on there, the less and less the signal becomes. You can get boosters and repeaters, however, it doesn't always work out that way.
So the Wi-Fi that we're talking about there it is some of the problems there. It's good because it's so wide reaching, nearly all of us have got it. And once you've got the password, you can share it and start to use it. But again, as soon as we start to put up barriers, so brick walls, plasterboard walls, again, it starts to affect that signal as well. But like Jake said, adding things to this network doesn't mean it's endless. It won't just sit there and continue to work. Typically, our home routers will allow how many? How many was it?
Well, they'll go on running on and on pretty much up until sort of 100 appliances. Yeah. But if you were using all them 100 appliances, the chances are of them all working at the same time is very slim. The other thing I just wanted to mention, you mentioned about all those materials there, Darren. Yeah. The big one at the minute that I keep seeing is the metal strapping in new builds. So if they're putting up plasterboard walls and they've got the metal frames around the outside of and they're just tagging the plasterboard to it, that's really having a detrimental effect on the
creates a cage around it, doesn't it? Yeah. So yeah, we know that, from typical installations we've seen. So again, Wi-Fi is okay, but there are limitations on Wi-Fi and where it can or can't work. And as Jake said there, you can get repeaters to boost the signal around an installation and property, but again, you've got to look at how you do that. So Wi-Fi, again, is known as a local network. So when we're talking about local network, you have to actually be in that Wi-Fi spot to actually start to communicate with things. It can be extended outside of the property, can't it, when we start to look at using it in conjunction with our smartphones, smart devices that will be outside of the property or outside of that Wi-Fi signal on a 3G or 4G network?
Yeah, you can do, yeah. So if you're outside the property, the Wi-Fi stuff does work. Smart cameras or plug-in sockets that we have in our range that we're going to come on to shortly as well, they operate on a Wi-Fi signal, and you can gain access to them if you do have that 4G signal. The other thing probably to mention as well, Darren, before we start to move on to the next phase of protocols, is that there's two different bandwidths for Wi-Fi of the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz.
Yep.
It's probably true to say that actually most of the smart technologies out there operate on the 2.4 gigahertz range. The reason that they do that is the lower power consumption and they are wider reaching. The 5 gigahertz typically is the sort of the closer network. So if you had a router right by your TV, you perhaps would use that 5 gigahertz network there. But when you start going a bit further out, yes, it is stronger and probably a little bit better, but if it's a closer range, it's better. If it's further, it tends not to be.
Yeah, so for devices that are further away from the Wi-Fi hub, the lesser of the two is the better.
Yeah.
Also, there's less power consumption, is there not for that?
Yeah, as mentioned, it's less power consumption for that 2.4 gigahertz, which again is something when they're communicating consistently, then you obviously want to be dropping that down.
Yeah. Now, again, Jake's spoken about this, and it does have an effect upon some of the devices that you're going to select for your client. So you just be mindful of that there. So all of a sudden we've got Wi-Fi and we want to use it externally. So we use a cloud-based system. We can do that one with it. You're probably looking at the next level, which Jake spoke about earlier on, which is a mesh network solution. So a mesh network solution will provide its own mesh network within the installation and property. So we could have one device at the origin, which is typically known as a gateway, and we'll show you a typical gateway when we look at this. And then moving on from that, we'll start to look at the other devices within this mesh network. So here you can see an array of devices that can be connected, and we're going to start to look at how they work within this mesh network, because this isn't known as a Zigbee protocol, Jake, is it not?
Yeah, so there's you've got Z-Wave, which is another protocol. However, most of the people at the moment that I've come across are working on this Zigbee. As you can see in the center of the page, that is what is known as the gateway slash the hub or router, as it's known. It's named by loads of different names there. And we can see all these dots that are coming out from the center of it. So it does, we like to call it the heart of the system. The way that operates, or the way it works, is that plugs into your router. That then talks to your Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi then talks to the Zigbee hub. The Zigbee then talks its own language. There's nothing to do with the Wi-Fi in terms of controlling devices. It talks its own complete language.
Yeah, that's why it's known as Zigbee protocol. This is the communication. So again, it's an open protocol, so you can get hold of this and use this. So if you've got other devices as well, they can start to communicate as well. And you'll notice it's not a true mesh network, Jake. So there are a few things we need to just discuss here about mesh networks. A true mesh network will have every device connecting to itself and other devices around it that are being provided by that meshed network to that Zigbee mesh network. So from the hub, it will go out to wired devices, and then from them wired devices, they will repeat the signal to other wired devices and then back to the network or the gateway themselves. Now, this isn't that, is it, Jake? This is slightly different.
It is, yeah. So as you've mentioned there, Darren, all of the devices, if it was a true mesh network, all the devices would talk to each other. If we take the PIR on the left-hand side of the screen as an example, you can see that it goes from the hub to the PIR, and it also goes from the switching module to the PIR. We'll notice that it doesn't actually repeat on from that. The reason for that is because they are battery operated and they cannot repeat the signals via battery operation. Some manufacturers may do it, however, we've chosen not to do so because if it does start to repeat a signal, it does have an effect on the battery life.
Yes.
If it's affecting the battery life, chances are that it's going to affect your system further down the line.
Yeah, very much so. So what we've got here is known as a tree topical network here. So it doesn't give a true mesh network. However, yes, it is a mesh network, but it's not a pure one. So it will have connected devices that can take and transmit are wired devices. So we're going to take a look at these with you. Now, what you can do is you can start to add to these. So you can take manufacturers from all different manufacturers and bring them together. The way you do that, if they're all communicating on an open protocol, you can start to employ if this, then that technology, can't you, Jake?
You can, yeah. And sorry, Darren, just before you go on to that, I just wanted to mention about the hardwired products.
Yeah.
If you can see the two switching modules that are a bit to the left, top left of the screen, you can see that they're bouncing on the signals. We've actually done some in-house testing with our stuff, and we've gone from one side of our office, which is to the other side of the warehouses, which is around about 100 meters,
yeah.
And we actually bounced the signal on that far. Had it probably not been for the metal structure of the warehouses and the brick of the offices, we probably would have gone further. So touching back onto if this, then that, it's a tap to run. It's an operation where something happens. So if we would like, if the PIR is being set off, so if it's being triggered, it would then tell a switching module to turn a light on, or it would say that it needs to turn a light on, or if it's triggered, then it needs to make sure a socket is turned on to turn on a heater or a lamp, for that example.
So this network that Jake's looked at gives you the ability to use things in isolation, but also use them together to give a full understanding for the homeowner or whoever's owning the property of what exactly is going on there. So you can probably see where this will really aid assisted living, or if you want just an automated home, it can take a lot of the jobs away. So for instance, if it does detect that it's too hot, it will open windows and turn heating off. It can do that without a doubt. It can also add time limits to what's been going on. You can give people access to certain things if they wanted them to get in the gate but not get into the porch to deliver a parcel. You can absolutely do that. And you can do it through a number of the devices we're just about to quickly show you to start to look at some of these and talk about where the protocol works. Jake spoke about this earlier on, and this really is where that protocol will start from. So this distributes and looks at the communication protocol, the Zigbee protocol, known as the hub or the gateway. From here, it goes out and starts to go out to those devices. So one thing we've done here, we've made sure that the socket looks like a socket. So hopefully you'll agree. Yeah. So this being a wired solution, we'll be able to take that Zigbee protocol, receive it, send it back if there was something happening here, but also repeat that signal on, Jake. So you can just keep going with these, can't you?
You can, yeah. And as I've said already, we've tried it with some of the products here at the warehouses and the offices. However, that was over, nearly a 200-meter square span, Darren. So when we look at these, we could probably bounce these all around the house without absolutely no problem at all.
Yeah.
You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen there, you've got like a blue indicator. That is to say that this is a smart socket, so that will be there. So with these sockets as well, they'll fit in a standard back box, so there's no need to be putting in 47mm deep back boxes.
Thank God.
And the added benefits of these ClickSmart Plus sockets is that you can lock them as well. So as you mentioned as well, this assisted living, Darren, you can lock it. So if it was in a a sheltered accommodation, for example, when you didn't want people to turn the kettle on at night time, you do have that ability to lock that as well, and you can lock either side on a twin or again for a single. So that's just one of the benefits.
So no PlayStations after 9 o'clock at night. You could do that, couldn't you?
Yeah.
And when again, this really means you can lock it. So even then, manually going on and switching them on and off, you can't do it. To switch these into pairing mode, you turn your gateway on, put it into pair mode. You then press this black button there, any one of the rockers for 5 seconds, and it starts to pair almost instantly. You'd fit it exactly the same as any other standard 13 amp socket.
When you say pair, Darren, does that mean that we need some sort of app to do that?
Yeah, the application is really what takes it, and this is where the communication protocol really does work. So the communication protocol really just brings everything together, and we have an app. And this is where the if this then that technology also kicks in. Let's look at some other devices because we've got some modules for switching. So we said earlier on about switching. This is a very typical switching module. So this will allow you to switch things on and off. It doesn't just have to be a light, it could be an indicator, it could be a horn, it could be a pump, it could be whatever you want it to be. There are limits with these though, typically 10 to 16 amps you can switch these, but there are ways of including them into a traditional system so you can switch larger loads, isn't there?
There is, yeah. You could probably do it through some sort of contactor if you needed to do so. However, this one that we've got at the moment operates around about 10 amps, Darren. So we don't have the 16 one as of yet. It is something that we're looking at doing if the demand is there. You'll notice the one in the middle does have a neutral connection as well. That is the 10 amp version. And again, it just needs that. However, the other ones to the left of it, I'm just trying to see because my bar's in the way. To the right of it, that doesn't require a neutral. So actually, when we spoke earlier about these devices and using them to get us out of sticky situations where we can't get wires there, or there's a problem, sometimes there may not be a neutral at a lighting point or a light switch. Therefore, you can actually fit these without a neutral, which is again is an added benefit of these devices.
I remember when I first started my apprenticeship, Jake, if I ever suggested taking a neutral to a switch, I think I'd been flogged.
These devices as well, you can see there's a small bracket. They are dim rail mountable, so you can simply just go and put them in a box somewhere, whether that be in a loft or next to a consumer unit where you can take all your wiring back to, and they are dim rail mounted as well.
So that's switching. Dimming is pretty much exactly the same with regard to sizes. So you can see those sizes there. So again, typically just fit in the back of a normal standard Patra, so you can put those.
With these dimming modules, it's probably important to mention that you do need to use retractive switches. You can do it without them and use the app. However, it does cause a bit of confusion when they're starting to switch and dim. So we do say that you need retractive switches. Again, it doesn't matter what the retractive switch is, as long as they're wired in the way that the instructions say so.
So these are wired devices. So these will take the signal and then push the signal on. So you can start to create the mesh network. This makes the network really, really big. So if you've got these dotted around your installation, all of a sudden your mesh network has started to grow. So don't worry about there being black spots of where your Wi-Fi was. This distributes Zigbee, so you don't have to worry about it. So this is where it's good if you understand communication protocols on any system that you're starting to put in.
We've got PIR sensor. Again, we've mentioned this previously on the mesh network. This can be used for various different things. The products that we have here at ClickSmart, at Scolmore, they for indoor use only. The way that I would potentially use this something like this, Darren, a PIR sensor, is that you put it in your bathroom late at night when somebody needs to go to the loo.
You can do that.
They can bring on just one light using this PIR. They don't have to switch it on. How many times have you gone into a bathroom and used that pull cord and it is so loud it feels like it's shaking your head?
Yeah, again, and especially if you've got your kids, you don't want a light switch at all because they ignore it. They're good for putting it on, but not for putting it off. So again, yes, it can be good for that. And again, for switching, for dimming, anything at all, this could then go on to turning on a strobe, so you could start to create a little bit of an intruder alarm system with this. Literally, that will pick up a signal. It will distribute back using the Zigbee network. What you do with it after that is entirely down to you, and it's limited only by your imagination, really. That, because it's using the Zigbee protocol as well, will give instant updates if you're using the app, so the homeowner can really get hold of that and they can do what they want. They can feel a bit safer knowing full well what's going on.
Window and door sensor. We can use this in a number of ways. This can tell you if somebody's breaking into the property, as Darren's mentioned there about an intruder alarm.
Yeah.
So if somebody's forcing it, as soon as that contact's broke, you can get a notification to the app, and that will ping up on your phone via them push notifications that we're seeing on most apps now. You could use it if it was left open to say not to bring the heating on, because what's the point bringing on the heating when there's a window open? However, my partner doesn't agree with me on that one.
So again, this is battery technology, so this will not repeat a signal. So your mesh network is limited to these devices, won't go any further from them. So that's limited to those. The same can also be said for the temperature and humidity sensor. You can use this in conjunction with some other devices that are there. And again, this will take it. It doesn't just have to be within our range. This can take that information if you're using the apps such as If This Then That. Again, it can then turn lights on or heaters on, and you can do with it pretty much whatever you want. And then the other devices, Jake, that's there?
Yes, the Wi-Fi smart camera. We spoke earlier and said that there's two products within our lines that are Wi-Fi. The reason that these are Wi-Fi, or the smart camera, should I say, for definite, is that it's Wi-Fi is because Wi-Fi has two firewalls. That means it's double security to stop anybody getting into your system. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, surely everything should have a double security. However, with the camera there, you can potentially see within inside the property, so it needs to be ultra secure. The only way that somebody could possibly get into this is if they had your Wi-Fi password. So it's important that you do keep all your security information safe from anybody apart from your loved ones.
Yeah, so again, there's the security part of that. Now, this one here, Jake, we know works on the 2.4.
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So 2.4, this one's working. So again, you would need to perhaps know this. And if you've ever installed something smart in someone's home before, and it's not quite working out, it should be, you may need to get into that router of the customers just to make sure that it does what it's meant to do. So, but it's not the only thing, the Wi-Fi, is it? We've got one more thing.
We have, yeah. I'm just going to mention as well about some of the features on that camera. Okay. Again, it's a one-way talking system. So if somebody is in your property, you can talk to them and you can hear what's going on inside there. So you've got that option. You've got the option as well to mount it whichever way you want. You can mount it on the ceiling, mount it looking down the sideway. It does also have an SD slot, so you can record direct from there as well. And you can also watch and take images live as they're happening.
Yeah, so again, it doesn't have to just be that with ours, that you can then start to do things with it. So if it's sent to someone, it can then start to do other things in other applications.
Oh, and it does operate in night mode as well, Darren, just important to say. This is the last thing that's in the range at the moment, is the smart Wi-Fi plug-in socket. We've spoken about the hub and saying how important it is to have it. However, if you don't want to go to them lengths and you don't really want to be spending that sort of money, whether it's out of the picture, and you want a simple solution because somebody wants to make sure that a light is being turned on at a certain time at night, if they're going on holiday, for example, they can control that whilst they're on holiday by using this smart Wi-Fi plug-in socket. Very simple to set up, and it probably should have the 3 pins on there, Darren, because it is as simple as that. Plug it into a standard socket, and then it is a smart Wi-Fi plug-in socket.
Yeah, so again, all this smart really is all around the what happens behind the scenes, the communication protocol. So we're looking for those really, aren't we, Jake? It's again, if this then that technology will mean if this happens, then that will happen. And again, it's been designed again with Zigbee in mind as well, that different manufacturers can start to work together, so can join themselves, so that I could have a Nest thermostat talking to my lights, the Avaya lights, no problem at all. May not be the same manufacturer, but because the communication protocol is common, it means it can start to talk to each other and act as one. So this is where you want to look for a complete home solution. Understand the communication protocols before you really start to move into it. What else we got, Jake?
Let's have a little look. Oh, we've got conclusion. There's probably a couple of other things that we do need to mention. It is voice control as well, so it can work with Amazon Alexa, and it can work with the Hey Google setups. Get the right words. It doesn't work with the Apple ones. I'm not sure that that's an option at the moment. It's something that if we get the demand, we could potentially look at that as well.
Yeah, we'll always look at it. So to conclude then, so smart installations have been around for an awful long while. You can go for the full building automation systems that are normally KNX operated. You know, we've got lots of Cat5s, and we've seen that move into the area where we're starting to see domestic houses with that as well. That is one method you can. That is a full blown, and that you call it shed. So shed is, I can't remember, something head end or something like that. So that's what they're doing. So
home header.
Smart home, yeah. So again, this is a smart system where you've got lots of wires. If that's the case, you're probably looking at a typical installation. 3-bed property, you could say, could range from a rewire of typically 3,000 upwards, whereas if you're looking for that solution, it's probably 30,000 upwards. Now, again, that's not for everyone to go to, but this type of solution where you've got the communication protocol that's open for everyone, this really is a possibility for you and your clients now. If you want things to start to work with certain things to make it a truly smart system, you need to ensure that you are employing a open protocol communication system that will allow you to not only work within a system, but also different systems to work together through different applications such as if this, then that. So again, Jack, I think that's pretty much it. We've got everything we want to deliver. Anything else you'd like to just quickly deliver whilst we've got them? Don't forget, you get the chance to put any questions to us as well.
Yeah, there's not been any questions at the moment, Darren, but I think it's coming along, and I think not just saying our solution, our ClickSmart Plus, does give people that opportunity to actually have a smart home. It, as you've mentioned there, Darren, it did seem like a long way away when you talk about KNX systems or whatever systems it may be, being about £30,000.
Yes.
This really is bringing smart into the domestic market, and it's something that definitely I'm excited about, because it's interesting to know that you can do everything from the tap of your phone and look exactly what's going on in your property.
That's it. So, right, just to remind you, if you want any more information, you can go to SGTV, can't they?
Yes, they can go to the YouTube channel, SGTV, make sure it's the Scolmore brand. There's lots of information on there. There's going to be lots of how-to videos. So if you do start to take this ClickSmart Plus into your properties or the jobs that you're doing, there's going to be lots of how-to videos on there, where I will be looking at how we basically wire it up and any solutions that you need.
That's it, yeah. So if you just tap the button, give them the link that they can have a look at there, so they can have a look at that. So SGTV, go to youtube.com/Scolmore_group. There's SGTV there for you to take that on. We've had no questions, so what we'll do is we'll thank you very much for your time this evening. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, if not hectic schedules in the lifetime that we live in at the moment. Jake and I have got to do a little bit more, ready for some other stuff this week. So hopefully, we really do hope that you're staying safe. We want to see you soon at some events that we eventually get out to. And until then, stay safe, everyone. It's been really good to see you this evening, and we'll hope to see you soon.